All right. Hugh Freeze has been fired.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, a very special live edition of Locked On Auburn. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. The writing was on the wall, and thankfully the writing was read by those in power at Auburn. Hugh Freeze has been fired. Hugh Freeze no longer Auburn's head football coach. Pete Nakos of On 3 was the first to report. Daryl, hop in whenever you can. And this is a surprise to none. Obviously, there was some conversation and speculation on if John Cohen would pull the trigger. Lindsay, hop in whenever you're ready and able. I mean, this is obviously a big day for Auburn. There were some questions, Daryl, but obviously, this move ultimately surprising no one.
No, it had to be made. I feel a little bit different than I did when this news broke on Halloween with the Harsin situation because, like I mentioned last night, I personally liked Freeze. I felt like he tried. I felt like he made a tremendous amount of effort, especially with the recruiting. But it just didn't work. I don't know. Sometimes things just don't pan out, whether it's the game passing you by or whether it's stubbornness to change. We could go through, and we will, the list. The bottom line is, you never celebrate. It's difficult to celebrate this, but it had to happen. And I think there is optimism of perhaps now turning the page in a new day of Auburn football, because what we saw last night was one of the most unacceptable things I've ever seen on a football field.
It was terrible. Lindsay, your initial reaction to, I guess, one, waking up this morning and it wasn't done, to now, okay, there were kind of rumors and, okay, there's a team meeting scheduled that's not normally on Sunday afternoons. And then obviously Pete Nakos, the first to break the news that Hugh Freeze has been fired. Your initial reaction was what?
After seeing the end of the game last night, it had to happen. And I didn't expect it to happen immediately after the game, but I would have been shocked had it not happened today, because it felt like the fan base in the stadium finally broke last night. And I know you guys talked about this, people leaving, the booing of Hugh Freeze at the end of the game, the chant of fire Hugh Freeze. That's Brian Harsin's tenure was bad. And let's not be, Daryl mentioned it. It was worse than Hugh Freeze. It's because at least Hugh Freeze tried, right? Brian Harsin refused to recruit, all that stuff. We're not here to relitigate that. But I don't remember it getting this bad with Brian Harsin, where the fan base just in stadium during the game had clearly had enough. And when you lose Jordan-Hare Stadium, there's no way you can keep going.
Yeah, you can't win at home. You can't win on the road. You can't win. Period. That's it. End of the conversation. I'm glad Cohen pulled the trigger here. So DJ Durkin will be the interim per reports, which not surprising. Curious, would love to know the mood of the meeting that's supposedly happening in like an hour and 15 minutes. I think it's happening at 2 o'clock. I saw some people say 1:30, but I think it's 2 o'clock. Daryl, as far as this team's leadership the rest of the way under DJ Durkin, what kind of shift are you expecting here?
Well, first of all, I'm glad to hear that, because I guess it would have been 45 minutes ago I was hearing reports to the contrary, that there was 3 other names that were possibly being mentioned, and I wasn't real thrilled about that. I wanted it to be DJ Durkin. I think the players responded to DJ Durkin. I think if you look at that defensive side of the football, look at how hard they've played and how they've never given an inch despite getting nothing from the offense. It would be very simple to be demoralized and feel a little bit less than. To his credit, that group, that unit did not. They kept playing at the highest level of levels. And so that in itself, I think, is a tremendous endorsement of having him as the interim, because obviously people play for him. And guess what, guys? it's not situational. It's easy to get guys to play hard for you when things are going the way they should or you get your way. When they're not and they still do, I think that speaks volumes. So, 3 games left. So many different things to unwrap. Who calls plays? Do they bring in an offensive analyst to do it? They've got a bye week after the Vanderbilt game. But I think Durkin's the right move. He has head coaching experience. His players love him. And that unit played at a high level despite the offense giving them nothing. I think that goes a long way.
And on Dapp's note as
Lindsay
well.
at 15. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. It's not just Durkin doing the thing. His veterans, his players are the ones cited by other players as the guys in the locker room keeping everything together, right? Keldrick Falk is the number one name we hear as far as players who are stepping up and being leaders and rallying the whole team. And the fact that it's not only him, it's his players shows the type of mentality that he's putting into the team. And I think that's the other reason you had to make this move as well and give it to Durkin.
Yeah. So now,
guys, real quick. Go ahead, Zach. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Daryl.
I was going to say, how many times we watch a team that gets demoralized when one side of the ball absolutely plays like cheeks and the other side just says we're wore out from carrying. That to me is, I think, very, very what Lindsay said. Absolutely an extension of the veterans of this team that never quit, never felt folded the tent, and then Durkin's leadership.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, $15 million buyout, which makes the decision to play the Baylor game in Atlanta make a little bit more sense. Not going to lie to you. As far as what's next, guys, let's spend a second talking about who would be your first call. That's next right here on this live edition of Locked on Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, you can bet $5. If that first $5 bet hits, you get $300 to use in bonus bets throughout the app. Fascinating to see what the Auburn Vandy line is and how much if this helps or not, because clearly Hugh Freeze could not beat Diego Pavia. Maybe DJ Durkin can beat Diego Pavia this weekend. Head over to FanDuel.com to download the app today. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at GameTime. It's the best place to buy tickets. It's the only place that I buy tickets. It's the only place Daryl buys tickets. It's the only place Lindsay buys tickets. Just download the GameTime app. It's free. Use promo code LOCKEDONCollege. You get $20 off your first purchase. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the GameTime app today. Thank you so much for making Locked on Auburn your first listen every single day when everyone on the planet is live right now. Thank you for being here.
Can I get a question real quick before we get into this,
Yes.
Zach? I just want to ask a question because I know we go live and information comes at us fast. Do we have verification that the buyout was not reduced? Because I was hearing by multiple sources that perhaps it might have been. And I'm not doubting.
I've read a few tweets from reputable, from I think AL.com and On3. I think both said it that it would be $15 million.
Okay, good.
But I could just be under the assumption that there has been no settlement.
Okay, good. Because some people in the chat thought otherwise too, and I always want to make sure that they have accurate information. So that's good.
I heard that going into the decision. I have not seen it reported anywhere. So y'all let me know if you see that.
Lindsay, would you have any?
I haven't had the chat pulled up yet, but if somebody in the chat could cite that would be extremely helpful for all of us. My first call would be John Summerall,
but I don't have any specific intel on that. But I've reached out to ask as well. So
okay,
cool. Thank you. My first call is John Summerall.
Mm-hmm.
I think you throw the bank at John Summerall. Yes, I think he's the betting favorite right now to land the LSU job. I'm talking to people at LSU, and they almost think that it wouldn't be a good fit for a few different reasons. I think he would be a better fit at Auburn than he would at LSU. I think John Summerall needs to be your first call.
I'll let you go, Lindsay.
I think that makes a lot of sense because you have to look at fit. And you have to look at how these guys fit in with Auburn's culture. And John Summerall is the type of guy that would fit in with Auburn's culture. He's familiar with the area, right? He worked at Troy. Reportedly has a good reputation in the state with the high schools. That clearly matters. And I think the other thing that you always look at this with a coaching change. He's kind of the antithesis of Hugh Freeze. Hugh Freeze is an offensive-oriented guy who had been in Power 4 jobs before. John Summerall has not run a Power 4 program. He's been at Troy. He's been at Tulane. But he's been working his way up on the defensive side of the ball. And I do think both of those opposites, that does make a lot of sense for a cultural fit. I like John Summerall. And I think he would be your first call. He's been at Tulane now just under 2 years. I believe he's 15-7 there.
So I am in this mode. Go ahead.
If you don't mind, Joel, just real quick. Mike G is reporting Hugh Freeze has stepped down as Auburn's head coach after a meeting with John Cohen. A source confirmed there were multiple attempts to negotiate a buyout after the Missouri loss, which were rejected by Coach Freeze. After the loss to Kentucky, a deal was reached to accept a reduced buyout last night in return for Hugh Freeze to step down. Working to confirm the exact numbers of what was accepted, but it appears the university was prepared to litigate if need be. That is coming from Mike G.
Yeah, that's what I was hearing last night, actually. And the litigate thing, absolutely, it just confuses me because of clauses and that kind of thing that I wouldn't want to get into. I don't even know what could trigger that. I will say, go ahead, Lindsay.
The thing that I always say every time you see a coach firing, it is very, very hard to make the case that a firing was for cause. It is incredibly hard. And the idea that you would have tried to litigate that, I guarantee you it would have been long and drawn out and ugly, and it would not have worked.
And it also, I think, hurts you when you go for your new job search, your new coach. You don't want to have that as a reputation of somebody that comes back. It's just not a good look. And $15 million or whatever it is to Auburn is not a lot of money compared to the buyouts they've paid before and what other schools are paying. So, and I think Zach hit on it when we came on the air. I mean, that the game being moved to Atlanta, I actually heard early on and didn't want to repeat that was one of the reasons that you have that in your back pocket if you have to pay a big buyout. Let me say this about the first call I would make. I love John Summerall. I covered him at Troy, had the opportunity to interview. I love him as a coach, but I want Auburn to swing for the fences. I want Auburn to quit trying to find up-and-comers, risers, group of 5 coaches. There's an expression that I live by that you always have no in your back pocket. I would make a big-time Power 4 coach tell me no. And people don't want to say that's funny, little old Auburn being unrealistic. It's not unrealistic. It's not to say that you're going to get a Lane Kiffin, but I would make him tell me no. I would make Kenny Dillingham tell me no. I would make Jeff Brom tell me no. I love Brom. People say, well, he's never going to leave Louisville. He went to school at Louisville. Well, Vince Dooley went to school at Auburn and almost was Auburn's coach, but stayed at Georgia. If you have dog in you and you have an ego and you want to say, can I coach at the highest level of college football? You want to coach in the SEC. You want to take that leap. Yeah. Plus, Auburn has more resources and could pay more money. If those don't work out, then I would go to a plan B option. And the first person in my plan B option would be John Summerall. And then let's not forget that DJ Durkin needs to be a candidate as well.
Yeah, the fact that DJ Durkin is the worst case scenario, I love that. I absolutely love that because I think the program's better if DJ Durkin is the head coach. Yeah, the going after and making a big swing for someone, I do think John Cohen is going to try to do that. He strikes me as someone who wants to make a big splash. I think he tried to do it last cycle with Lane Kiffin. It would sound like it was close. Didn't happen. Went with Hugh Freeze. He didn't get to go big game hunting for a basketball coach because of the timing of Bruce Pearl's retirement. So, obviously elevated Stephen Pearl, which I have no issue with. But I'm wondering if this gives him another opportunity where this is really going to be the last chance to define his tenure as Auburn's AD with this hire. He missed with Freeze, didn't get a chance to do it with basketball. This is it. This is it for John Cohen.
I don't hate the idea of something like a Kenny Dillingham. I do think that Cohen has to get this right. And ultimately, like, I'm not the person who's like, hey, you got to hire this guy, you got to hire that guy, whatever. But you just have to get this right. And honestly, as many openings as there are, there's going to be a ton of names out there, a ton of opportunities for guys to jump ship. The goal here, I just want it to be a thorough process. It feels too often, and maybe it's just because we always get information from people, it feels like too often Auburn's focused in on a guy, on one guy. And when then they lost that guy, they had to almost panic and pivot, right? They focused it on Lane Kiffin. And when they didn't get Kiffin, they kind of had to pivot, and that's how you ended up with Hugh Freeze. Cast a wide net. Do a thorough search. Let's get whoever you think would be most successful. If that's Dillingham, great. If that's Summerall, great. If that's trying to go get somebody who's at a school now, a Lane or whoever it might be, fine, that person. Don't worry what the other schools who are hiring are doing, because not all of their candidates will work here. Find a guy that fits our culture. Find a guy that is willing to come in and do the work, and just do all of the due diligence you have to do to make a decision. Like, it sounds terrible. I genuinely don't care who it is. I do not care who it is. I just care that it works. I care that whoever they hire, it can be Zach and Daryl as co-head coaches. I don't care. I just want whoever they hire to get Auburn back to where it should be.
Because
I mean, obviously that's going to be the goal. I do think so. Going into the Freeze cycle, the thing that intrigued me the most about him was his ability to recruit, right? And then obviously the offensive stuff was exciting too, which obviously is now laughable. But that's what we all thought. That's why we all like to hire, was recruiting and offense. We got the recruiting aspect of it. But I do think the more NIL becomes a part of this and Auburn's resources compared to, most teams, not all, but most teams throughout college football, I don't care as much about the recruit. So, like, whenever somebody brings up, random Big Ten coach, and the pushback is, well, he doesn't know how to recruit in the SEC. I'm like, well, I think the infrastructure now is more friendly to that. I want someone who I feel like can actually prepare a football team, because we haven't had that in a long time. Maybe early Gus Malzahn. Like, it's been a minute where I felt like Auburn had a more prepared team than who they've played against. That's the same with like that, and that's the same for Harsin, and then the back half of the Malzahn era. And I just don't think that's going to be that ridiculous of an ask with what Auburn's going to be able to shell out for whoever the next head coach is.
And that's part of the reason why I don't think we have to go sign a sitting P4 giant name coach. We need to go sign somebody who is a good coach. Yes, talk to Dillingham, talk to some of those guys. But that's why I care about how well they coach. I don't care about what school they're at right now.
I think that a couple things, Lindsay's saying that you absolutely have to get it right. You guys, we need to understand that there are a couple of must-haves. First of all, I know in this age of NIL, you're right, the recruiting aspect of it is a little bit different than it was 5 years ago. But you do want to retain most of this roster. Even if you don't, NIL enables you to go get other guys to replace guys. But Auburn should never be a carousel or a merry-go-round. And this will be the fourth coach in 6 years. And that's unheard of at this institution. It's just not. You can say what you want about Auburn, but the previous 32 years they had 4 coaches. So that's what needs to stop. Crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. It is. That's what needs to stop is, you need to look at what you have from a roster standpoint, try to retain most of it, then go get the coach that best fits that roster. I think that really is important because if you've got a guy that says, look, I don't want to even mess with the offense, I'm going to hire a guru offensive coordinator that is a genius and let him do it all, that might be the route to take, and if Durkin stays on as defensive coordinator. There's a lot of intangibles and a lot of things in this era of college football that changes, like Lindsay says, on what kind of coach you get. I'm just telling you, I have been involved are around every Auburn coaching search since Pat Dye resigned. And Auburn went after 2 Power 4 coaches. Tommy Tuberville, who I think outside of Dye was the best coach that Auburn's had in this modern era, and Gene Chizik, who won a national title, although that was not met with, people were booing at the airport. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you guys, but I've just not been jazzed about any of the hires. I wasn't thrilled about Malzahn, turned out to be okay. Hugh Freeze, to me, felt like we settled because of the thing you mentioned, Lindsay, about going after Lane. And let's be honest, Harsin wasn't Auburn's first choice. What was he, like their third choice, I think? I think he got – couple other people turned it down. So
must have been a really big hot tub with Alan Green.
It was a very big hot tub. Alan, yes. So it's different. This coaching search will be different than even the one 3 years ago because of NIL. But roster retention concerns me. I'm not going to lie. And I think getting the right coach to keep most of this talented, highly compensated roster is very key.
Yeah, and I do think there's a few elements of this search. Like, I'm not 100% into saying like I want a defensive-minded coach, but I do think from a philosophy standpoint, I think it'd be a nice shift. Mm-hmm. How much of a priority is keeping Durkin on staff, assuming it's not DJ Durkin as Auburn's next head coach? How important is that? Because I do think something that we've talked about with these, or that we haven't talked about with these hypotheticals throughout this season of, okay, let Freeze go at this point, then like, let's just see what DJ Durkin can do. Something we haven't discussed is it's pretty rare to have someone be interim and then they go back to just being a part of the staff. The Caddy thing was pretty unique. You don't see that very often. And so I do wonder, and it sounds like that was part of the motivation when they were discussing like, other options as interim is what I was told. So I do wonder, I don't know. It seems like it needs to be pretty high up there to keep DJ Durkin, but also Daryl, like to get one of those guys you're talking about, that's, you're swinging for the fences, to get a guy who's winning at a high level at the P4 already. That's the kind of guy that's going to want to come in and wipe it clean and let everything be him. So I think there's a chance it's going to be I think it could be a weird balance here.
Maybe unless it's a coach that coached with him before at Ole Miss and knows exactly what kind of defensive coordinator Durkin is. And number 2, let's not forget this scenario. Durkin as an interim coach, regardless if there's a coaching search and like Lindsay said, throwing a wide net, this is an audition. He may get the part as an understudy without having to go hire the actress. You went out, you let him be the head coach. I'm sorry. I get people go, well, that doesn't mean anything. You go and beat Vandy on the road, you beat Mercer, and you beat Bama in the Iron Bowl, and this team reacts to him that way and plays high-level football, and let's just say the offense looks better, then you have to really, really strongly consider him to be the front runner.
That is the continuity aspect. And I do think the other part of a situation like that, and I'm not saying you have to do that, the other part of a situation like that is it probably ends up being one of the more affordable options. In this day and age of revenue sharing and all of that stuff, if you try to go sign a big name P4 head coach away from some other school, that is inherently going to be more expensive than promoting the up-and-comer. And I do think, especially if the up-and-comer is an offensive guy, just random names, I'm not advocating for anybody, Alex Golesh at USF or something, okay? Your overall financial pool that you're having to spend is probably smaller than if you're trying to get a Dillingham to come over from Arizona State, combined with the fact that it's probably easier with that lower level guy to say, hey, we want to give you the sitting defensive coordinator as your assistant head coach or whatever you want to call it. He's going to run the defense for you so you can just focus on the thing you do well. I do think there's a scenario here where it makes sense to if you think keeping Durkin's that important, just go ahead and focus on a lower level coach to promote and let that work out, like an Alex Golesh. Again, I'm not saying it has to be Golesh. That's an example of the type of hire that would work in this situation.
Well, I think Golesh and I think Summerall are going to be pretty attractive options in this entire carousel. Like, I don't know if those guys are going to be like super cheap. If I'm going to be 100% honest with you, considering where they're coaching now, because even if like they don't go to the larger openings right now, whatever order you want to put them in, LSU, Penn State, Florida, Auburn, Arkansas's up there just to be in the SEC. Like, okay, well, let's say they don't get those jobs. Well, other jobs are going to open up that are probably better than South Florida and Tulane, especially if we're talking about, LSU doing what they did to Notre Dame to get Brian Kelly, if they want to go that route again, or if Auburn tries to do the same thing. I think all of these coaches are going to cost more because of the nature of this coaching carousel.
I still
they
think
will.
The difference in that and like a Dillingham, though, what it's going to take a guy who has a current buyout to leave a P4 school. But yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Coaching salaries are not going back in the box. They're just continuing to get more and more expensive. And this cycle is going to be, despite LSU's governor's best wishes, this cycle is going to be incredibly irritating.
You either pay now or you pay later. I mean, I get the whole concept of revenue sharing and NIL and all that, but let's just be honest. Had there been a counteroffer back in 2022, and the rumors were that there was, and Auburn was willing to match that counteroffer by Lane Kiffin, you're looking at a lot cheaper scenario than you are with a $15 million buyout that you're paying right now. That's all I'm saying. You pay now or you pay later. I get your point, Lindsay, and I get Zach's point. Summerall, wherever he goes, or Golesh, wherever he goes, is due for a raise of double probably what he's making. But it's all relative. I think you're going to have to pay. You cannot allow. You're going to have to overpay. You're going to have to overpay because you cannot allow the trajectory of this program to continue to go. It's in a tailspin. We've talked about this before. Worst era since post-World War II. And, we're talking about Harry Truman was president and Auburn had, that's the last time. That's almost unfathomable that you're in this situation right now. And to get out of it, you have to overpay. I just think you have to overpay. It's just like if you're in a situation in a job and you're a hiring manager and you really, really, really have to fill a position, you're going to have to probably go with a higher salary to get that person because you're desperate, a little more desperate. And Auburn, if they're not in a desperation mode right now to get this turned around, I don't know what's going to take for them to be.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're right. All right, so we'll have more shows coming out like all the time to make sure you're subscribed.
Did we reset this? Did we each give the number one candidate that if we were a genie? No, we wouldn't be the genie. The genie would be in the bottle. We'd rub the bottle, and the genie would grant us a wish of who our coach would be. Let's go through and give our number one candidate our wish list. Zach,
let's do that in just a moment. Let's do that in just a moment right here on the special live edition of Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Alumni Hall. Can you guys imagine buying Auburn gear anywhere other than with our friends at Alumni Hall? I personally can't, and neither can you guys. And chat, you can't either. Head over to Alumni Hall. They've got 3 great physical locations, Auburn, Opelika, and Huntsville, or you can check them out online at alumnihall.com. Maybe a new coach will get you fired up. You need more Auburn gear for this new, fresh era.
Would they have a shirt with the coach's face on it? The new coach's face on it, maybe? Would they have a shirt like that?
I don't know. Maybe so.
By the way,
it might depend on who the coach is. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But if anyone's going to have it, it's Alumni Hall.
And thanks for putting it out there when somebody did ask me to hug them and keep them warm last night. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Absolutely. AlumniHall.com. Thank you so much to Alumni Hall for sponsoring Locked On Auburn. All right. Let's do that, Daryl. Let's do exactly what you said. I mentioned a second ago, like my first call would be John Summerall. And then just because that's my answer to the question, but just because we haven't really talked about him a ton, I am kind of fascinated how many Auburn fans turn their nose up to James Franklin. I mean, the guy won 2 playoff games last year, and like everybody's acting like he's a scrub. And I'm like, well, hold on. We scored 3 points against Kentucky. Like, we're not a spot where we can turn our nose up at anyone who's winning multiple playoff games in a season. So I do think James Franklin is interesting. I don't think it's a fit personally. Like, I understand the pushback on it, but the scoffing and the turning the nose up at James Franklin from Auburn fans, I have been surprised by that over the last few weeks.
Well, because there's some off the field stuff that maybe some of these Auburn fans know, and that's probably why some of the things that have happened in persona and that kind of thing from just on the field only.
It's weird what off the field stuff matters and what off the field stuff doesn't matter to people. Yeah. Like the inconsistencies of it are fascinating.
Yeah, I'm gonna just be quiet on that one.
Maybe there's stuff I don't know about. There's stuff I don't know about there. I don't know.
Yeah,
there is. I apologize.
I would go Lane Kiffin. I would just make it. He would be my first choice, first call, first candidate that would be on my wish list.
See, if we're talking about not liking the effort that Brian Harsin gave, I don't understand how we'd be happy with Lane Kiffin. But that's me. Whatever. I think John Summerall has to be one of the first calls. The more I think about it, the more I like the idea of Alex Golesh. And I'm going to throw a curveball name. And I'm not saying you have to do this. I'm just going to throw a curveball name like Zach wanted to. Ryan Silverfield from Memphis. As far as an offensive guy, he's young. He's like 45, but he's been coaching ever since he got out of college. And Memphis, they're like 50-20 under him since he took over for Mike Norvell in 2019 or 2020 or whatever it was. So those are probably some of the guys, but I want to interview all of them. I don't want to talk to Lane Kiffin. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's the off the field stuff. I don't want to talk to Lane Kiffin.
I get what you're saying about Harsin.
I would love Lane
results. Harsin didn't get near the results Lane Kiffin did. We can talk about work ethic. Whatever. He works hard enough to draw up offensive game plans that absolutely put any defensive coordinator in a straitjacket. And, he's good in the portal. I get it. He's on his boat and he's in the Keys and all that. But if you get results, I really don't give a crap. Harsin was doing that and not getting results.
Harsin also refused to recruit. He just refused to try.
True.
Like that's
true.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that was bad.
You can't win with 3 stars.
Please like the video. Please subscribe. Daryl, Lindsay, you go first. How can people check out everything you've got going on?
I'm on social media at Crosby Baseball. A lot of Brave stuff going on. BravesToday.com and in the Braves Today podcast.
DAP 6410. DAP 6410. I'll be on tonight on the Barncast with Kyle Rush, and then tomorrow night basketball live from Neville Arena after the Bethune-Cookman game.
So much happening. We're playing Bethune and Cookman, which is wild. Please like the video. Please subscribe. Whether you're tuned in on audio or video, please subscribe. Helps the show out a ton. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked on Auburn.